Hi, it's me, Dex. I want to tell you about the techniques I've got for making relationships better. I want you to keep in mind, first of all, when I say making relationships better, it doesn't mean that you have a troubled relationship. It could be a good relationship. It could be a very good relationship, but it could be made even better. I have the techniques for this. And of course, if it is a difficult or strained relationship, then maybe the difference will seem a little more pronounced after what we do together. But these techniques are quite magical. And on the subject of relationships also, I want to make it understood that we're not just talking about romantic or spousal relationships, although that might be the prime interest, but relationships with a co-worker, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a boss, an employee, whatever, that we can bring about truly magical results. The techniques that I use for relationships or for anything else can have quite magical effects, and consistently so. In this case, we'll talk about what happens with the relationship techniques that we use. Literally, with the relationship techniques that I've developed and I'm using, there is a result of the other person in the relationship, who of course is not present for our work in the sense of participating in the session, that their attitude changes. The way they are towards you becomes friendlier, more loving, nicer, markedly so. Believe it or not, as amazing or magical or incredible as that sounds, it's routine with the work that I do. Over the years, this has occurred again and again and again and again consistently. And it just came to mind because the first statement from a client in a session today at the very beginning was to say, we addressed I'll just say my partner, I don't want to give the name of his partner. We addressed my partner in the last session, and since that session was over, after that session, she was nicer to me and more loving than ever before. Right here in the notes. And honestly, that's to be expected with the relationship techniques that I use. And that was from one technique used in one session. Why does this work? Because I have this understanding that the idea that there is any distance or separation between us is really a shared, creative, protective illusion. It's an enforced protective illusion to try and create distance between yourself and another person. In the truest spiritual sense, we are all simply here, and there is no there. And that is in the truest sense. That's the actuality. And so we have these enforced illusions of distance that we create protectively, to protect ourselves from what we feel will happen in engaging with other people. It's the truth. And it proves out with the techniques that I do, which show that when we address in the session yourself and the other person in the relationship, what we're doing in that session affects them along with you, because we're processing a shared created space of presence between you and them, because you're specifically creating a togetherness in a relationship, which is a natural state of things to begin with, but it's recognizing that closeness, that coexistence. And so we're just opening the doors that have been closed through these techniques that dissolve and untangle and dismantle what we've created to separate ourselves, things we don't want to feel in ourselves, things we don't want to feel in the other person, and the resistances we put out. And then we understand, we feel the other person's feelings, we have absolute empathy, and there is no distance, and there's nothing but love, friendliness, acceptance. And it's a very serene feeling and very noticeable. With my background, having experienced Scientology, and that so many of you have also, you may have heard of a technique that Scientology uses that can sometimes produce this result, but not consistently as they claim. To go over it very briefly, it's what they call a suppressed person rundown. And the total amount of time invested in what you have to do to get to the point where you would even begin this rundown, as they call it. A rundown is a Scientology term for a collection of techniques put together for one specific result to be gotten from it all cumulatively. That's sort of what you might define what Scientology calls a rundown. Anyway, on this, you could be expected to spend upwards of 30 hours in processing time and sessions. And believe me, you can't count on that result happening where the other person's attitude towards you changes and becomes much better and you get along much better. It does and can happen sometimes. The approach itself is valid, but it's painfully slow and does not always get that result. But what we're doing, and I'll tell you, the techniques involved are, one is called a harmony restoration technique. Another is called personality image projection resolution technique, of how we project images on each other of ourselves and them. I've covered that in other videos. I won't go into detail now. And what I simply call the newest technique of all that I've developed, a wonderfully effective technique, is simply called the presence technique. Any one of these or all of these does result in a change in the relationship, not just in how you feel about them, how you are towards them, but noticeably how they are towards you. Again, I've had this similarly voiced by so many clients, but just what came out today, which is what inspired me to do this video, because this really should be made known. It's sort of a miracle, but it's every day that we do this. And we addressed my partner in the last session, and since that session, she's been nicer and sweeter and more loving toward me than ever before. There it is. So, yeah, I can do that for you. I can help you to accomplish that in any sort of relationship you have with anybody that needs that help or just could be better. You know, if you have a romantic relationship, well then, you know what, it shouldn't be compromised that you have to live with certain bad moments or attitudes that nothing can be done about. It's kind of a fatalistic projection. We can resolve all this, and you can have the same result. We're actually processing the energies and feelings between the two of you, and that brings about a change together. So I'm here. I'm ready to do this for you. And again, this is typical of all the techniques that I use, that they do accomplish a remarkable result. Here when you're ready.